Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really fascinating, the evolving world of design strategy. For the longest time, the design industry was basically seen through a purely aesthetic lens, right? But man, the business world has shifted. It's pretty much public knowledge now that a company's success is deeply tied to the quality of its user experience. But here's the catch. There's always been this gap between qualitative user experience and hard quantitative data. Well, today, we're going to bridge that gap. We're going to figure out how to transform design from just pure intuition into undeniable, measurable business proof that absolutely secures your design ROI.
So let's kick things off with a critical question, especially for all you C-level execs out there dealing with tightening budgets this year. How exactly do you transition your design strategy from just a gut feeling to measurable business proof? Executives today already know, intuitively, that design is the engine of their business. But honestly, intuition alone just isn't cutting it anymore. CEOs, chief data officers, and chief product officers are knocking on their head of design's door with three massive challenges: rationalizing resources, executing enlightened business prioritization, and actually delivering concrete performance measurement. And guess what? The only real way to tackle those three challenges is through data.
It's wild to think about how much design teams have evolved since 2010. We started out with straight-up graphic designers, who we now call UI designers, focusing purely on aesthetics. Then along came UX researchers and designers, and they were entirely focused on behavior and problem solving. More recently, we saw product designers step onto the scene, kind of merging UX and UI into one holistic role. So what's next? Well, the source material makes a really confident bet here. The next massive process upgrade? It's not going to be entirely new job titles. Nope. Instead, it's going to be about injecting deep data and AI competencies directly into our existing product teams.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to start with the data-driven design era. Then we'll outline the 5 sources of data, and after that, we'll walk through Step 1, augmented empathy, Step 2, defining impact, and finally, Step 3, directed ideation. Simple as that.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the data-driven design era. This is the new paradigm.
To truly wrap our heads around this shift, we're going to anchor our journey in the legendary 5-step methodology from Stanford's D School: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Now look, I know there are other methods out there. You've got Tim Brown's 3 steps, the Nielsen-Norman Group's 6 steps, but we're focusing on Stanford's approach today. Why? Because it's a super neutral, academically robust framework that's been proven by thousands of students and professors. Traditionally, these 5 steps have been taught using purely qualitative methods, but today, we're going to look at the first 3 steps and see what happens when we absolutely turbocharge them with quantitative data.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 5 sources of data. This is what's really fueling the whole process.
You know, when we talk about data, the line between qualitative and quantitative can actually get a bit blurry. Like 10 interviews, that's qualitative. But 100? Now you're starting to bridge into quantitative territory. To truly optimize resources, product leaders have to pull insights from 5 distinct data pillars to create this holistic ecosystem. First, you need client data to understand demographics and purchase history for personalization. Then, user data that tracks actual online behavior and interactions, absolutely crucial for optimizing your interfaces. Next up is prospect data, which helps you convert interests from forums or social media into actual paying clients. Then we have product data, looking at how features are actually being used and how they perform. And finally, market data, which brings in competitor tech and broader trends. Let me tell you, if your team isn't tapping into all 5 of these as a single unified system, you are definitely missing the full picture.
So that brings us to Section 3, which is Step 1 of our process, augmented empathy. We are going way beyond just intuition here.
Listen, without empathy, you just have design. You don't have user experience. The absolute biggest pitfall for product teams is believing they intuitively know their users, or worse, thinking they are the users. Traditional empathy relies a lot on ethnography, right? Shadowing, or the classic fly-on-the-wall technique. And hey, those are amazing, but they are incredibly limited when it comes to scale. By shifting to data-driven empathy, we go from observing a handful of users to understanding the actions and motivations of literally thousands of people simultaneously. We're talking about introducing automated semantic analysis to scrape reviews, tracking traffic sourcing to understand exactly how users are even landing on your site in the first place, and using deep analytics to track engagement at scale. It's a total game changer.
And the tools that track online behavior? They map out the literal journey of your user. Instead of just guessing, you're turning this abstract concept of web navigation into solid, actionable data. You can track the exact paths users take the second they hit a landing screen. This allows your design teams to pinpoint the objective strong and weak points of an experience. It entirely removes the guesswork.
Now, think about analyzing a purchase funnel. It's not just about making the user happy anymore. It's about identifying exactly where a massive drop-off is literally costing the company money. Take a plunge from a 54.8% completion rate at a list page down to a mere 14.1% at the product page. I mean, that is a glaring red flag. But here's the beauty of it. When your design team has this hyper-specific data, they know exactly where to focus their energy to stop the bleeding. It directly connects design to revenue.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, Step 2, Defining Impact. It's all about prioritizing friction.
All right, so armed with our newly augmented empathy, we've got to translate those observed user problems into prioritized business impacts. It's all about finding the friction points that are the most painful for your customers and the most actionable for your business. Now, to filter out the noise and find the true signals, data-driven teams use this really cool concept called atomic research. The whole goal here is to take this mountain of research and strictly organize it into its absolute smallest components. That way it becomes infinitely reusable and totally accessible for the entire product team.
The atomic research process forms this perfectly logical chain. It all starts with an experiment, say a survey or an A/B test. That experiment gives you an indisputable fact. Something like, hey, 85% of users don't even see the Request a Demo button. Those facts are then combined into an insight, which gives you a much deeper understanding, like realizing, oh, the button placement is fundamentally flawed. And that insight, it finally leads you to a clear recommendation. It's beautiful because it connects raw data directly to the recommended UX fix.
But here's the million-dollar question. How do you actually get the budget for that fix? Well, you do it by placing competitive benchmarks right side by side with impact quantification. Analytics tools can show you exactly where your bounce rate or your load time sits compared to your industry peers. But more importantly, you can project the exact conversion impact of a proposed UX change. Think about it. When a product owner can walk into a C-suite meeting and objectively justify their design budgets based on undeniable quantified ROI potential, the conversation completely flips. It goes from, hey, we want to make this look better, to a hard-hitting, if we fix this UX flaw, we will see this specific percentage increase in conversions. That is how you get buy-in.
And that brings us to our final step, Section 5, Step 3, Directed Ideation. Time for data-backed solutions.
Now, this is usually the favorite step for the creative profiles on the team and, honestly, probably slightly dreaded by the deeply analytical ones. This is where creativity meets our freshly quantified problems. Instead of just throwing random ideas at a wall and hoping something sticks, teams can now use rapid brainstorming techniques. We're talking Bono 6 hats, the Crazy Eights, or Scamper to generate some truly radical alternatives. And because of all that rigorous data work we just did in the empathize and define stages, these brainstorming sessions are highly directed. You aren't just ideating in a vacuum anymore. You are generating solutions that are perfectly targeted at the data-backed, high ROI pain points we just nailed down. Ultimately, bringing data into design isn't about replacing creativity at all. It's about giving creativity a precise target. As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to challenge your own team's data maturity. Ask yourself, do your designers actually know the business KPIs of the user journeys they're working on? Really think about that. If the answer is no, well, it might be time to start thinking data to truly empower your design. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and definitely keep designing. Catch you next time.